bunch of people from the Level 1 text forum, although one's technically not anymore, but still. um, and then we're going to go over a variety of topics today. Let's do a quick intro with everyone. Not sure if everyone knows who from the Level 1 text forum. And then, so I'll start out. I'm K-Man1, also known as Nick Caven, and K-Man12342. I do a Red Team Plus member, and I like a lot of tech. So let's go to Castiel.
I am Castiel. I have I understand law a little bit. I understand game engines a little bit. I handle the legal stuff most of the time when we have them.
Yep. And then Cool Dude.
Today, I am Hands. I'm not Cool Dude. I am Hands Dude 007. I'm putting together a 3D printer that I've been talking about, and please skip to the next person because I'm going to be doing this off stream, and maybe they'll come back to this later, but hi.
And then Himika. Or...
Hi. I'm the awkward one. I don't do anything. I know a little bit about nothing. So got that going for me.
Okay, and then Lessershoe.
Hey, you got it right. Lessershoe, general free software advocate, sometimes streamer. Coming in for, there's a rather large open source story this week, so I wanted to jump in on that one to cover it.
Yep, and then our first topic here, I think, is Castiel with Mass Effect.
Yeah, so this week, BioWare released their first big patch for Mass Effect Andromeda. When it was released in a rather... There were issues with it. Animation issues, character customization issues, dialogue, loading screens, a lot of issues that needed to be fixed. And this is just the first patch. BioWare have actually said they're going to be releasing patches over the next 2 months to fix everything they're planning on fixing. So if you're planning on getting Mass Effect Andromeda, wait 2 months is my advice right now. I did play with the latest patch, and it did fix some things. One of the things that they did do when it came to traveling from planet to planet is they played this animation that was pretty much a loading screen for all intents and purposes. And one of their patches is going to address that issue where it won't do that anymore. It'll just be like, here, planet, done. They did fix some of the facial animation bugs that were within the game, as well as the walking animations within the game. I did notice that. It was a little steadier when it came to performance. But yeah. I mean, this game was released in a broken state, and there were a lot of reasons for it. One, it wasn't handled by the main BioWare studio. Two, apparently the people that handle the facial animations were a third party, so they hired someone else to do it. And I'm just like, what? I don't have any confirmation on that, but I believe it after what I've seen. Really, when it comes to facial animations now, is if you're a AAA publisher and you have the money, and if you're AAA, you have the money, please invest in full motion mocap for the faces, for crying out loud. It's
like
now,
Star Citizen.
yeah, like Star Citizen, yeah, or Witcher, even Witcher 3. I mean, come on. Anyways, that's all I have to say about that one.
Just don't blow all of your budget like Oblivion.
Yep.
All right. I actually have the next topic as well, which is, this is what I qualify as a non-story for someone in the legal field, which is a lot of people were panicking about this. And I was surprised when I saw it because The only reason I even know about the story is because I follow Projekt on Twitter. So when this popped up on my Twitter feed, I'm like, why is this coming up? I don't understand. This really isn't an issue. So here's what happened. CD Projekt has trademarked Cyberpunk, the term, the word. They have trademarked the term. So a lot of people were kind of being like, "Oh, this is terrible. This is evil." Yada yada yada. And there was a lot of confusion, misconceptions on what it was. So they released this statement, and it really does explain it fairly well. And let me dive into this a little bit further as to why this isn't as big of a deal as people are making it. Here's the big thing. When it comes to trademarks, the reason there is a trademark on things is usually to prevent confusion with an image, with a product, with a particular brand. Ford has a trademark on the Ford logo. BMW has a trademark on their logo. It comes to branding. That's where trademarks come into play here. So the reason that CD Projekt did this is to protect the brand of Cyberpunk, the series, that potentially they could make a sequel to 2077. They actually already own the rights to the Cyberpunk 2020 series as well. They own the trademarks there. The other reason this is a non-story is because they already had the trademark for Cyberpunk in the US since 2011. Meaning this story came up 6 years later when they filed for it again because they were updating it. So this is really, to me, someone like me, this is a non-story. They've actually laid it out very clearly that if someone wants to make a game in the Cyberpunk series genre per se, they have no problem with that. What they do have a problem is if someone uses the term cyberpunk and tries to make it look like it was made by them. That's what a trademark is for. It's to protect potential confusion. The other thing is they also said, if you're worried, contact us. And they probably seem like the type that you'd be able to play ball with and communicate with because, number one, they run GOG. They have independent publishers running through them already. So I don't see there really even being an issue here. Like I said, this is a non-story for me completely. But does anyone have any questions about this when it comes to the Cyberpunk trademark?
I'm just a little curious as to what happens to all the books and the sleeve covers that say a cyberpunk novel or something along those lines. That seems like they could cause some issues.
Okay. So what this relates to is when it comes to the title. So if it said Cyberpunk and then it said something like a year, that's where they would want to step in. But when it comes to something like a book, this trademark wouldn't affect that. This is in relation to when it comes to video games. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so the trademark is in relation to video game. Okay.
Yeah, I saw some people like wailing and screaming that CD Projekt Red has basically patented the words cyberpunk.
No.
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 No. No.
In next week's news, CD Projekt Red, they copyright the word Western.
Oh.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. They probably do a better job than, historically has been the case with certain media.
Yeah. All right.
The next one is the SSE chairman fast tracks the repeal of net neutrality.
Yep.
This is also Castiel.
Yeah, I offered to cover this. So this one isn't that surprising. Ajat Pa has basically come out and laid out his plans as to what he's going to be doing. And his plan is basically to hand over regulation of the internet to the FTC, and as well as to get rid of the net neutrality and just have it be voluntary with the FTC. So there are a couple reasons as to why this is actually a really, 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 really bad thing. So the FTC, when it comes to regulating things, it's a little different. The FTC stands for Federal Trade Commission. Federal Trade Commission. Huh. So, anyways, if that's the FTC, yeah, Federal Trade Commission, yes. Anyways, I was to make sure I was, because there are so many different. Anyways, uh, them regulating this is kind of like, it's laughable. It is laughable in a lot of ways. The FCC, when it comes to regulating things, they can come down a lot harder and a lot faster. They have a lot more power to do things, like when it comes to regulating phones and whatnot. Like they're like, if it weren't for the FCC, we would have a lot more spam phone calls than we do right now. That's how powerful the FCC is. And the FCC is, of course, enacting more tools to block out spam phone calls. They have that power, that ability to do that. The FTC does not have that power. What they do is they basically can ask very nicely for a company, hey, for you to be able to continue to be hunky-dory, would you please follow these guidelines that we have laid out? They can't fine you. They can't force you to do really too much except for follow a few guidelines. And since the net neutrality will be voluntary, that's just bad across the board. Basically saying the ISPs will be volunteering to not block any websites and not throttle to websites. It's a potential for a disaster, is my honest opinion. Nothing bad has happened yet, but the potential for a disaster is there.
Yeah. So that about wraps up that topic, right?
Yep.
Let's see here. Who's got the next one? I think our next topic is the Titan XP, the Titan XPP. So it's basically the same as you're used to, except for now with 300 more cores. So that's about the news here, and it's basically a kick in the face to anyone who had the old Titan. So
I'm always curious as to who does same cycle upgrades, because it really seems like NVIDIA is always trying to reach out to those folks, and I'm just wondering how big of a market is that someone within a year is buying more than one GPU. I always find that surprising.
yeah, I don't know. For me, looking at this, it's like they want a graphics card for this year, but it is so pointless because it's only what 10 or 20% faster than the old one. So
yeah,
it gives you, well, if you're one of those like OCD people who are like, no, I can't have 11 gigabytes of RAM. I need 12. Then this is the card for you, I guess.
yeah. Other than that it had, I don't know if it's actually come out yet, so we'll have to wait and see how much it is actually better. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be too much better. So
it's certainly not. It's certainly not going to be worth $1,200. Like what are they going to come out with? Do you think they're going to release a 1080 Ti?
No, and I don't think they're ever going to come out with another dual graphics card again. So there's also that.
Yeah, because then someone will turn it into a Tesla or a Quadro, and it'll be bad.
Yeah, but I think that about hits that topic. And then let's see, Lessershoe, you have the next one here.
So a major news that's going across all the open source and Linux world and kind of affects everyone is Canonical, the same guys who are behind Ubuntu. Most people, at least somewhat tech savvy, have heard of Ubuntu. It's the it's almost the face of Linux to a certain extent, at least in the consumer, normal day person side. They announced they're killing off quite a few of their primary technologies. One of them being Mir, which Mir is a display server, which was the rival to Red Hat's Wayland. They also announced that they're killing off Unity, which is their own desktop user interface / phone interface, in favor for GNOME 3, which is also made by Red Hat. It's a Red Hat project. The next big thing that also got announced is their mobile initiative, both in tablet and phone. They're killing that too. And now history reminds you that Ubuntu also abandoned another previous project called Upstart, which was an INI system for initiating programs, called Upstart, in favor for System D, which is also a Red Hat project. A lot of people don't like Unity. They don't like some things Ubuntu's been doing. But one of the useful things about all this is they were keeping competition with Red Hat. As of right now, a huge portion of Linux, including a lot of the code in the kernel, GNOME, Wayland, Systemd, are all essentially Red Hat products. And that's a little bit worrying. The other one that's worrying is another competitor who stepped out of the phone and mobile space. Microsoft looks like they're already starting to leave the mobile space as well. They're looking, some of the stuff they've been doing at their store. There's a story talking about how they're basically installing a Microsoft ROM onto Samsung Galaxies if you buy one in their store. Looks like Microsoft is starting to move over to the Android train. So that's another competitor out. And they're selfish, but that's on life support. So we're probably going to be looking at very, very soon looking at a duopoly in the phone space, similar to how we have in the desktop space with Microsoft and Apple. And that's not really good for anyone. You know, BlackBerry's already switched over to Android. There's not much in the way of variety anymore. It's a little scary now looking at it, because all it takes is for Google to just simply say, hey, no more ROMs, no more, you have control over your devices, which some of the guys like Samsung have already done that. And we could see a not so pleasant world in the world of phones. So a little concerned about that.
Yep. It was nice when I could use my Windows phone, but now, even within the past couple of years, it's like all of the apps that used to be there are like gone.
Mm-hmm. Microsoft does look like they're backing out of that space as well. It's just Google and Apple dominated it.
Fire Phone was a thing for a little bit, but
well, that's what you get when you try to create a phone that only runs web apps, which was a very ill-gotten idea. I don't even know where to begin on that.
Let's see. Next topic is
elsewhere.
Elsewhere
in Linux news and a bit on the AMD side, Vega 10 code has been spotted in the open source kernel as added by our good guy AMD. The only thing is there's like a little bit of a chunk of code that's missing that probably won't show up until Vega 10 launches, i.e. to try to protect specs and things like that. But probably it'll be launched pretty close to same day as or at least about the same time as the paper launched. So that's pretty cool. Along with a myriad amount of bug fixes. And that's actually kind of fun because AMD's been releasing so much open source code now. You can kind of see some of their development in that, the hardware development going, because they have to prep stuff beforehand. And cool dude's just going to town up there.
Yep.
And moving over into kind of some IT news, actually talking about Ubuntu, they said their core focuses are going to be cloud, IT, and server. If Ubuntu's any how they've handled other things, I can go into a very long list of stuff that they've abandoned and ran off with. IoT won't last. I give it 2 years and they'll back out of that space. But speaking of other IoT things, there's currently a bot out there that's going through and disabling devices with bad security settings out there. And so if you're one of those people who buy a router or an IP camera and you never bothered to configure it, this bot's probably going to get a hold of it and disable it. So be aware on that. Someone did raise a pretty interesting point, though, is, this is to help stop things like the Mirari botnet and all that, is this still doesn't stop stupid. A dumb person's going to look at it and go, my IP camera doesn't work. Throw in trash. Go buy new IP camera. Not bother to do any security settings. Plug it back into network. So while it does help somewhat mitigate the botnet, it's not going to stop the core problem, which is people just being stupid.
Yep. I think it'd be more interesting if they had one like this that would just
set up security settings for you instead.
Yeah, but then you have the problem.
Need to force the end user to put in proper security settings, because I mean, they can change it later if they want, but by default they should be required to.
That wouldn't be impossible if you did a DNS redirect from the device and have it send to a page, hey, stupid, add some passwords to this. We noticed it's unsecure. And anytime you go to Firefox or Chrome, it just right there on your screen. I think that's probably the best way to try to solve the problem.
Yeah, the one that made me laugh was the Raspberry Pis for a long time had the default SSH. Like, oh, hey, look, I can just SSH in.
Oh, the default password? Yeah, it surprised me the amount of people, because it actually asks you to set a password, so there was a bunch of people just not bothering to do that.
Yeah, ship the device, like, whenever someone buys an Internet of Things device, like a toaster or a crock pot, send it to them effectively bricked until they put, security settings that meet certain requirements, reasonable requirements in. That's all you can do. Well, it's not all you can do, but it would be a very good idea.
Yeah, that would be really nice. On a somewhat unrelated note, we have there's a new power plan for AMD Ryzen processors. It's more or less the same as high performance, but it will also improve power efficiency. So it makes you have good performance in games, but also still keeps sleep and power states. So just kind of an interesting note there. I would have pulled up a article about the memory overclocking on Ryzen, but couldn't find one in time here, so. Any questions or anything on that? No?
Not really. I mean, not for my part. I mean, they're increasing, power efficiency capabilities in Ryzen. They're already pretty cool parts. I mean, the more power efficient they can make the parts, I'm all for that.
Yep. And then our last topic here
Second to last.
Second to last? There's another one?
Well, which one are you doing? Are you doing Cortana or the Scorpio?
Yeah, I'll do Cortana actually. Forgot to pull that one up somehow. The Cortana now allows you to use it to set up Windows 10, which is all kinds of interesting.
Yeah.
I can't see how that could possibly go wrong.
No one could possibly use this for nefarious purposes, Microsoft.
Yeah, you got data collection even on the installer. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cradle to grave. The only other thing I can see is you're trying to configure your stuff in Cortana, partition blah, and it mishears you and completely deletes one of your pre-existing partitions on like a removable hard drive or something.
Yeah, I heard about that a little bit just before we started the stream. People started installing Windows 10 on machines that had Linux already installed on it, and it kind of removed the partition that had Linux on it.
Always use manual.
Yep.
Always use manual.
What I've been playing with doing that, it doesn't actually uninstall and get rid of the Linux. It just gets rid of the bootloader, which is just as bad. So
there's tricks around that, but I've always told someone, if you're going to install Linux and you're going to dual boot, do it after you install Windows. Always do it after you install Windows.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So that was just quick topic here, and then our last one, our actual last one, is the Scorpio actually doesn't look too terrible. So it's going to be priced really high for what it is, but other than that, it's
Yeah.
more or less.
How high?
If I were to guess on this, just based on specs alone, 600.
Yeah, probably. Since it's got more or less an RX 480 in it, so. And then
As I've said before, my budget hunting juices will be flowing very soon.
This will be nice for the PC field. I think it'll help push things a little bit further. I hope, especially hey, all you guys with 480s now, you're gonna have a huge batch of games basically being the target GPU. So
Yeah, that'll be nice.
it also ups the VRAM to, well, the total RAM to 12 gigs of GDDR5 instead of 8 on the older one. So
I will have to give Microsoft some props here. They actually added a proper 4K Blu-ray player, which I still don't understand why PlayStation 4 didn't do that, since Sony owns Blu-ray. It's really weird that Microsoft has a better Blu-ray player than Sony does. It almost seems blasphemous.
It's a paradox.
It's Sony. That's gonna trigger some people, but yeah, no. no love lost for Sony.
yeah, they do
Anyway.
some odd things sometimes. But as our end of the stream thing, what have you all been doing this week? I've been testing and playing with Ryzen 5 this whole week, basically. So that'll be interesting when it launches on, what, Tuesday?
Yeah.
So, and see, Castiel?
I had a very productive week. I think it was Friday. Yeah, Friday I launched my big. I basically approached Came in the One with a proposal to do investigations for the blog that I'm helping write for. And I was like, hey, I want to do investigations. And he gave the green light. And this is one of the investigations I did. This investigation was on digital ownership of your ownership of digital content. Do you really own it? Yes or no? And what I found was just like, it just boggled my mind. Yeah, the video is like an hour long. It's no joke. It is an hour long, full of legalese and all this other stuff. But it was fun to do. I'm going to be doing another investigation that I'll be starting this week. Well, I'm continuing it this week. It's a long project of mine, which is what are your actual, when it comes to the internet and freedom of speech, what is really going on there? What is the actual thing there? And it's a very tricky topic to handle because it can get political because of people's perception. So to get around the political stuff, I'm just going to talk about the case law that has been done for freedom of speech, because there are basically 12 subtopics. It's going to take me about 2 more weeks to get everything I need. I've been doing this for about 5 months already, investigating this. So it's going to be fun for me.
We all look forward to it.
Yep.
And then Cool Dude is probably going to talk about his printer.
Maybe talk about it next week.
No, talk about your Skittles. You can save the 3D printer for later. Talk about your Skittles. This episode of The LAN is brought to you by Skittles.
Talk about them while they're in my mouth.
Taste the neckbeard.
I got nothing. Next.
Okay, Himika.
Do me next, because I'm setting up to show you what I've been doing.
Okay. Lessershoe.
Since the wonderful death of Ubuntu and my goal of trying to run one thing everywhere basically died there, I've switched back over to the wonderful world of KDE and have installed KDE Neon across most of my devices, and will be installing KDE onto my phone. Just got ported over to the Nexus 5X, and I'll be probably tinkering around with that probably next week. So.
Okay. Are you ready yet?
I'm ready.
Okay.
So I've got my little upboard single board computer up and running. It is running. It's booting into Linux Mint now. It actually runs pretty well. What I'm trying to do now is I finally found the cable for my external GPU dock. It's hooked up there. I got to hook up the power to it. But contrary to what I initially thought, the BIOS in this thing has a ton of settings. Like you can set up basically everything on this thing. And so hopefully that will allow me to set PCI Express ports to, video. So, prioritize them for the graphics cards. So hopefully that'll work. I'll let you guys know on the forums. But so far, it looks pretty good. Probably going to set it up as a router. Going to be doing some testing on its capabilities for AES, for like VPNs and stuff. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay, well, that about wraps up the stream here. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be here next week around the same time on Sunday. And other than that, thanks everyone for stopping by, and have a good day.